Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
We
made it.
We're doing it. Oh, man.
Every week I like how it's kind of a surprise. Like, we made it.
I know.
Somehow.
Somehow we get through. Hey, Todd. Yeah, we have some doozies. Oh, thanks, Josh. This week.
We do.
Yeah, before we get all into it, has your week been good?
Week has been pretty good. Staying busy.
Yep.
Staying home.
Yep. The usual. Yeah, same here. I think some people have the discussion, like, have seen that I'm in a million conventions this weekend.
Yeah. You've been, like,
stupidly busy.
I
have to learn that just because I can doesn't mean I should. But I like it. I like being able to meet people and
and this time you were able to be at like multiple conventions at once, like you wouldn't normally if you were doing it for like normal times.
It's the blessing and the curse of being able to do conventions in my pajamas is that I can do 3. But yeah, so if people are interested, I will be back on the Cosmo Questicon today at 2:30 Pacific time. So, hey, Mikhail. Oh, and thanks, Todd. Yeah, I was nervous about you watching that because you're like a telescope amazing person, and I taught about telescopes on my Astronomy 101 class this week. So, thank you. All right. So, you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. So, if you haven't been here before, we're watching Star Trek Next Generation. It's Samantha's first time ever watching this series, and we are almost done with it. So.
Almost done with season 7 of Next Gen. It's crazy.
We have one more week and then that's it. So so this week we're going to be talking about Sub Rosa.
We'll just let that sink in.
Yep. Lower Decks, Thine Own Self, Masks, Eye of the Beholder, Genesis, and Journey's End. These are some doozies of episodes.
These are special.
These are special. Sorry, I'm getting my book out real quick. Yeah, it's special episodes. And thank you, Todd. Yeah, we so I think when was it like early? It was earlier this week that I texted you and I was like, yeah, I'm watching. I'm like, the kids are in bed, I have a drink, and I'm watching Sub Rosa.
It's about to start, yeah.
And go on.
I had also had a drink by that time, and I was about to go to bed, but I was like, no, now I just gotta stay up and watch it.
Yeah.
So we were texting each other throughout it. Just,
Yeah.
That happened.
That was the thing that happened. So I had kind of. So for anyone who doesn't remember, or at least doesn't recognize the name, this is the Beverly Crusher Scottish ghost of grandmother's boyfriend body-possessing awkward episode. Was that a fair summary?
Yeah.
Okay, so we kind of prompted you at the end of last week with it. I just said...
like, this is coming.
This is coming, and you're going to get to watch Beverly Crusher get off with the ghost of her grandmother's boyfriend.
Oh my god.
And did I let you down?
No. It was so uncomfortable. Like, really. I mean, just everything about it was just cringy. You know? It was just cringy, but also like, why?
Yeah.
How in the hell did this get through the writer's room? Multiple times, I presume. It goes around writer's rooms.
Yeah.
How did this manage to sneak by?
Yeah. Exactly, domestic. It's Ronan, the sexy time-traveling ghost.
But, like, not even
sexy. They had some opportunities there. And I like to, I mean, the thing that cracks me up is that they basically like wanted to make this kind of sexy Scottish Moor type, you know, history romance I don't, gothic horror type story. And they were like, but we're in space. So the story is that like the bunch of Scottish people just like moved to this planet to make it like Scotland, and that's where her grandmother was. And I'm just like,
yeah, exactly. Lord. It's like Outlander, but space.
Yeah.
And not nearly as good.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. It's like, but we're in space. So how do?
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's funny. Like, I do have a great memory of this episode though, because they and now I'm going to shame myself because I do actually need to look up the name of the planet. If anyone has the name of the planet handy, throw it in there, but I didn't write it down, so I got to look it up real quick. But yeah, that was it. Caldos 4. So on the Star Trek cruise, not this year, but the previous year, I had the great honor and distinction of co-hosting Star Trek Trivia Night. And they do this twice a night, and they have guests that kind of dictate the theme for the trivia. And so I did mine. Jordan Hoffman's the other host. Oh, thank you. Let's see who that was. JB Curtin, thank you. So I'm hosting it. I do like my Science of Star Trek thing. And then the next night, Mary Chieffo was hosting it, and she was doing the like women in Star Trek was her theme. And they get progressively harder, like the easy questions are hard, and everyone's drinking. It's in a bar. It's really funny, and you know, it's just pub trivia quiz. It's my favorite thing on the Star Trek cruise. And one of the later questions, I gotta say, it was like the second to last or the last question was, what planet was Beverly Crusher's grandmother buried on?
Oh.
And one voice way in the back went, woo! It was like they had been waiting their whole life to be asked that question.
That's awesome.
And then Mary and I made eye contact and lost it. And it was awesome and hilarious. So at the very least, like, that's my happy memory. When this episode opens, I'll always remember that. But other than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's basically it. Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it's so funny. We were texting each other back and forth while watching it. And it got progressively more horrified.
Yeah.
We were just using every, like, nope gif that we could find. Because it's like, even knowing what it was, I forgot how uncomfortable that episode is.
It's super uncomfortable. And you're right. Like, memes, like, and gifs galore just for, like, nope, don't want that.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
No, thank you. I think the worst part for me is when Picard walks in and Beverly's in the living room with the ghost. It's like it progresses so quickly, and she's like, I'm leaving Starfleet because I want to be with a 300-year-old ghost. Right. To, like, honor the legacy of my family. And it's so weird. So weird. And, like, on top of that, like, the accents are all, I think I texted, like, Brigadoon, like, complete not right. Yeah. Brigadoon level of Scottish accents. Completely. Yeah. Oh, so funny. So funny. I think I want to find a way to put in your reaction into this chat that you posted. That's my favorite picture ever. It's so applicable. I'll see if I can look it up. If I can get a link to it so people can see it. Yeah. Here we go. There we go. All right. This is what Samantha summarized the episode as being. On our note sheet, this is like literally all I said. So, if anyone feels like clicking that link, it's just why though? It's a picture. Why though? So, yeah. And I think I asked you, like, the real question is, why is this episode not rated as low as Lizards? And you're like, I think it's just worse. Yeah. I think that it's a given that this is just an uncomfortable, terrible episode. Threshold is fun to watch in a ridiculous way because it doesn't get terrible until the last like 10 minutes, you know?
And then you're just like, ugh.
Yeah. Then it goes so wrong so
goes
fast.
South quickly.
But yeah, this is just from moment one when she makes longing eye contact with the gentleman across the graveyard that there's no going back.
No. I mean, do you have any insight? Like, does Gates McFadden have anything to say about this episode ever?
Yeah, I've never seen anything. I've never seen Gates McFadden comment on it. She's probably along the lines of just thanks, but no thanks.
We'll just forget that ever happened, kind of thing.
But I mean, you know, she's got a long Star Trek career of many episodes, and I'm sure some of these just come and go. But this is just blatantly uncomfortable. Like, oh, good Lord.
Yeah, I know. Like, the first moment when, like, her sheets start to, like, move, I was just like, I'm about to experience just the next hour is just going to be really awful.
My soul is crawling out of my body in discomfort. Right? Oh, it's just, oh, yeah, terrible. But we survived that.
We did.
We survived. And I think I told you, I was like, well, now I've watched it again. I can go back to not ever watching it again.
I can finally go back to never ever seeing it again.
Yeah, I have expelled the ghost that is Sub Rosa. So, let's move on to, I personally think, the best episode in this lot that we have.
Easily.
Lower Decks. So this is, domestic. I'm not going to ask her that question. So Lower Decks, I love this concept. I just am fascinated by this idea, and I love that it's such a great concept. They're making an entire series about it. But this is, in case anyone doesn't remember, this is the one that basically follows junior officers on the Enterprise who are trying to get a promotion. They're sort of the night shift crew. If Aaron's in the chat, like, he knows about that. That's his improv show.
Oh, cool.
And trying to follow them, just kind of like their ensign level, you know? So they're still officers, but they're, you know, we don't see them. And I think that that's something that I think demonstrates a lot of good self-awareness from the writers of showing, like, look, we've gone 7 years and we've only focused on, like, the bridge officers.
Pretty much, yeah. And, like, we've mentioned before how it's one thing Star Trek does well is they do feature certain lower decks and non-senior officer characters now and then, you know, and they have their moments, or you see different people on the bridge crew or on the bridge who are, you know, taking over for their night shifts or whatever. But I feel like Enterprise, as opposed to Voyager, has done not as great a job as really creating stories around the lower deck crew members. And this one was like a full episode, like just about them, like they were the main story, which was awesome. It was really fun to watch. I loved it.
Good. Yeah, because the Lower Decks episode from Voyager still had Janeway. Like, it was still because she was taking the Lower Decks officers on a mission, because she recognized she didn't really know them that well. But this was, as you mentioned, purely focused on the Lower Decks officers. Mm-hmm. So one thing I really like about this one too is it's not only just for junior officers, but an officer we've seen before, because they brought back Cito Jaxa from the Wesley Crusher incident school issue. Yeah. It took me a second to make that connection, that she was actually the same person. Yeah, it did with me too, because they reuse actors in Star Trek all the time, you know? Right. But yeah, First Duty was the episode, and then, I mean, it was intentionally the same character. Mm-hmm. I thought that was really cool. Yeah, and actually, I really liked Picard's testing her in this episode in terms of, you know,
he's really hard on her about that incident, but he's really kind of playing a long game of testing her character and personality, and was the one that asked her to be on the Enterprise in the first place so that she could have that second chance in a way. And that's the more I see Picard's like thought process in terms of building the crew, we see it mostly with Riker, but it's pretty clear that he has
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I really I think I'm a little bit more mixed on it. I think that him explicitly being like, I don't know how you got on my crew, and if it was up to me, I wouldn't have let you on, was a little too extreme. Because
it was hard.
That was harsh. But I do, like you said, I think it was a good test for her to kind of prove herself and get show that she wanted to be there, and she was going to do everything she could to make up for everything. Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, go
ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask what you thought about the plot line of essentially, I mean, the cool thing about it, and I think that this is kind of what they've hinted at with the first, kind of lower decks thing, is you have the main crew that are doing their thing, and the lower decks doesn't always have a lot of insight into that. They're just do what you're told. And I really like that concept, that they are going to, it seems fishy, and they're not being told the whole story, and they're able to start piecing it together a little bit. I don't know what you thought about that.
Yeah, totally. I did like that, because it doesn't make sense for everyone on the ship to always know everything. They couldn't. I think sometimes they're probably a little bit more in the know, but this time it was something really like sensitive and covert, and so they couldn't know everything, but they're trying little ways to figure out how, what's going on. And there's that one guy in 10 Forward, the civilian, I guess.
Yeah.
They had civilian people in Starfleet.
Yeah. But, Ben, the waiter.
Yeah. He's like trying to dip in the conversation and let them know what's going on. I thought that was cute.
Yeah.
And then the poker games were fun on this. There were a lot of interesting dialogue that was sort of double entendres, I felt, throughout it. And they switch between the games all the time. So it's like mirroring each other in what they're saying, and things like, you're bluffing. No, I'm not bluffing. And that's about the game, but also implied it's about the promotion, how they feel about the promotions and things. So
right. Yeah. And I liked too that when I'm trying to remember all the names of these guys. So was it Sam was the kind of guy that was left out of everything, right? That he was wanting to get promoted, and he was sort of the elbow everyone out of the way, suck up to Riker type guy. And I liked when Riker was just like, this guy's annoying me. He's at my side all the time, and he's asking too many questions, and how do I shake him? And Troy was like, how do you think senior officers like on the Pegasus reacted to you wanting to play poker with the senior officers? And it was kind of an interesting concept.
Yeah. And then there was the Vulcan
Torek,
who was annoying Geordi.
Yeah.
Like, why are we making it look like this was in a battle?
Yeah. That was so funny. I loved the sort of reveal where he was like, I know what's up. When he said, he was like, well, if we do it on this angle, that'll be more effective. And he's like, effective for what? For making it look like it was in combat?
Jordy's like, no.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so how did you feel about the Cardassian storyline?
So the fact that I wasn't sure if he was a Starfleet person who was altered to look like a Cardassian, or if he was actually a Cardassian defector who now works for Federation, but I thought it was cool. I mean, it makes sense that they would have, spies trying to, send information and make sure things are on the up and up. was surprised the way her storyline ended.
Yeah.
I actually rewound it because I was like, wait, did she die? Like, what? And then, yeah, she did. Which, it was unexpected.
Yeah. It's sad. It's really sad. And I think it affected everyone.
Yeah. And then the fact that the, guy who gets the promotion is like, I'm just getting it because she wouldn't get it. She can't get it,
Yeah.
And that's a tough, who knows if that was really the case, but that's a tough position to be in.
Yeah.
And to think that way about how, your movement. And then Worf.
Yeah. I was going to ask about Worf next. Yeah. He was her advocate. He was the one who was like putting her up for this promotion.
Yeah, and really in her corner, and I just loved him throughout this entire episode. He seemed really like he really truly cared about her, and wanted her to believe in herself as well, and just taking that time for her to make her believe she deserved the promotion as well was really special. Yeah. I really, really liked him in this. I like him every time, but
I know. you love Worf. And thank you for the follow, Guru Guhan. I appreciate that. So yeah, I think for me the most poignant scene is the final one when they're all in 10 forward and the lower decks crew is all kind of mourning her, and Worf is sitting off by himself, and Ben is kind of like, you should, or what does he say? He's like, I'm gonna need this table. I'm gonna have to move this table. And then he's kind of like, I know what you're up to. But goes and joins them anyway. And it was really, really sweet.
Oh, really special.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it'll be curious to see, and we'll talk about this at the end too, about Cardassians and stuff, but you're starting to get the little glimpses into the, the fact that she was a Bajoran. And I interpreted the Cardassian there as that he was a defector.
Okay.
So that he was, not, because I know your first introduction to Cardassians was Seska. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not all like that. There's not as much like plastic surgery going on as
gotcha.
Seska would make one believe. But yeah, I think this is probably my favorite episode. Okay, so then the next one is Thine Own Self. So this is the one that starts with Data basically stumbling onto this primitive colony and not really remembering anything that's going on. They take him in, this father and daughter take him in, and he's basically poisoning everyone with radioactive materials. At the same time, the B plot is that Troy is taking tests so she can be promoted from lieutenant commander to commander. So, what'd you think of this one?
I liked this episode. It wasn't super engaging to me, really. Data's just like, he breaks all the time.
That's really funny.
He
is, these later seasons, and I think I didn't notice it as much because I usually jump around TNG when I'm watching it. But these later seasons, there's a lot of transporter accidents. There's a lot of data malfunctions.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's a malfunction. And like, as sentient as he is a machine, and the wire gets interrupted and he's just like, I don't know who I am, and here's some radioactive stuff.
Yeah. It's funny because for me, when this episode started, I was like, oh yeah, I've seen this episode a lot. And I was trying to think of why. And I think it's just because it's after Lower Decks. And I like Lower Decks so much. Yeah. Right. It's like I just flow into the next one and watch it. I don't mind this episode. I think it's got some good high stakes. And hey, Andy. And it's got... I think the good high stakes that keeps me going is just the fact it's cheesy, but for a short form, 45-minute episode, this like, I don't know what this is, and it says radioactive on it, and everyone mysteriously starts getting sick, and
yeah. It was, in terms of like a detective story type, like we need to figure out what the problem is, and the problem is I can't remember anything. Like that was good. I liked that. It's just, I don't know, Data annoys me.
Yeah.
Not my favorite. But I did love Troy's storyline, and I'm appreciating like they're calling back to some earlier episodes and earlier seasons, you know, that one time she was in charge of the bridge and was like, we got through it, but I didn't really know what I was doing, and I'd like to take the bridge test, and I liked that. That was cool.
Yeah.
To see her go through that.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the reason I'm not as big of a fan of that plot is because the fact that Riker is in charge of her exam stresses me out.
That was weird.
Again, was like, lawful alignment.
Right.
But yeah, it's uncomfortable, and you don't know if he's intentionally making it extra hard for her or what, but
yeah. No, I definitely thought that as well. I was like, in normal circumstances, you would think that they would reassign somebody to run the test for her.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. But I do like the lesson that she learned in the sense that it was it's kind of that Kobayashi Maru, that it's like there are no win scenarios, and sometimes it's like the greater good, you know, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, and she's got to learn how to sacrifice crew members. It's not easy, but it's gonna happen.
Necessary, and or I mean, hopefully not necessary, but there's times when it would happen, of course.
Yeah. So I like that aspect of it, and I like that she learned that. It was interesting though, because well, first of all, before we get off of the Riker Troy thing, the thing that cracks me up with this is I don't think we talked about it when we discussed, I think it was a couple weeks ago, the episode where Picard falls in love with the Astrometrics woman, that they don't seem to have that chain of command dating rule. Right. And I'm like, it becomes more and more blatant as they're trying to like force relationships to happen in these later episodes. And you're like, but you're in space in an isolated ship. Like, you gotta take this more seriously than just relationships with everyone.
Exactly.
But we'll come back to that in a second.
Okay.
The other last point that I wanted to make with this one is that so my partner's kid was watching part of it with me, and she kind of got sucked in for the first time watching a TNG episode in the background. She was sitting here and she was like, she actually commented, for being so primitive, that Talur, that teacher, was teaching them about sort of the basic elements. She was like, she's kind of a cool, smart person. Like, she was an interesting character. She could have very easily been a, like, evangelist. Yeah. But I feel like they drew that line of her genuinely being a scientist, but also having her worldview be kind of crushed. And so it was kind of interesting how they balanced that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think she was an interesting character, and that was an interesting plot line of, they were, an early society, trying to figure this stuff out.
Yeah.
And that was great.
And then Cherubale mentioned that with the Troy storyline, they had a great conversation with Crusher, between the two of them having that conversation.
Yeah.
Wasn't about guys.
Right.
So yeah, it's a good one. So if you weren't, I know you've struggled with Data as a character lately. If you weren't at your wit's end, you got to masks.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I felt like this was not the most like Data annoying episode. It was just a weird, annoying episode. It would like, the ship is turning into a rainforest, and it's like Legend of Hidden Temple level.
Yeah, I think Andy summed it up with ugh.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's just, yeah. So this is the one where they find essentially the Library of Alexandria in comet form from another species that infects Data and basically forces him to reenact the mythology of these of this species. And
full personalities, which I honestly love as a thing, as a trope. Like I love watching actors do that.
Yeah.
But this was just not interesting.
Well, I remember one of your top Voyager episodes was when Seven took the Doctor's personality in.
Yeah. The one where she gets all the people who were transformed by the Borg, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think they're fun to watch because they must be challenging, and it's an interesting psychological, disorder, and there's just a lot of stuff there that I find fascinating. But again, this was just kind of not interesting. Like, I didn't care so much about the people, the data people. Like, I just didn't care.
The people within Data. So yeah, we don't need to harp on this episode too much. So this episode, a little bit of the backstory, because I was so curious. It was like I'd seen it, and then it started, and I saw the mask, and I was like, oh God, this episode. And so I was looking it up, because I think we were kind of joking last week when we mentioned what we were going to watch this week. Some people were like, yeah, it's a Brent Spiner acting like Brent Spiner for Brent Spiner's sake. But so I looked up kind of some of the history about this episode, and Christoph, yeah, we were talking about two different Voyager episodes. Thank you. But similar concept. So this was written by Joe Manowski, who he was one of these writers, and he had basically left for Europe and was sending things. And the reaction from the writer's room was, I don't know what he's smoking up in the Alps, but okay. And then the other aspect of this episode is that they said that Brent Spiner got the script for this the night before recording.
Oh.
Right after he had just finished doing Thine Own Self.
Mm-hmm.
Which was a thing in his own right as well. He had to do a lot of acting for that one.
Yeah.
So he was basically like, are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me? You want me to come up with 4 distinct people that are believable and make sense? And
oh my God.
So just kind of did what he could, but at the same time was like, F this, I'm phoning it in. Like,
yeah.
So I don't blame him in that respect, I think.
No, not at all. I mean, unfortunately, it's a little bit clear that there's some phoning in going on, but at the same time, like, makes sense why that might be the case.
Yeah, because you just don't have time,
He's clearly a good actor. I mean, it's nothing on him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, true, Real. Have fun. They said they're watching TNG with a friend who's also never seen it.
Oh, yeah.
These are bonkers. These are bonkers episodes. So, yeah, I mean, this one, it's... for me, it's just hard to follow. And...
Well, that's... Yeah. Yeah, it was hard to follow, too. I was like, this could be a lot, clearer of a story, but it's just really muddled.
Yeah, it's just kind of all over the place.
Yeah. And there's... Yeah. I don't know.
It is what it is. It's just a little bit weird.
But again, it just has those moments of where the crew's just looking around yep, ship's turning into a rainforest.
No. I love that that's your take on watching all of TNG. You're like, what do those internal memos look like? I love that. I think that's so funny. Yeah, this is a weird one.
Weird, very weird.
Okay, so Eye of the Beholder. So for people who don't remember, the cold open for this is basically a crewman commits suicide. And then they're investigating what happened. Troy's kind of leading the investigation and realizing that this murderer is still aboard, but then she starts having all of these visions, and she's like, I think there's an empath here. She also starts sleeping with Worf, and all of us watching are like, what is real? I don't understand. What's a vision and what's real? And then it turns out that basically this is all kind of left behind
Residual
like, yeah,
reflection stuff.
Yeah. So what do you think of this one?
I liked the concept.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, my hair is really
That's okay.
It's like, look, I liked the concept that Troy would get this sort of reflection thing of what happened. But what happened was just awful. And then she has to live through it in this reflection universe. And the fact that they still trying to put Worf and Deanna together is just like, I love them together as friends, but this was like one of those things where, again, like you say, what is real, what is not real, and well, thank goodness it wasn't real. Yeah, in a way. But I don't know. I mean, it was a very dark story.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a dark, unpleasant story. Mm-hmm. And they have a few of these. I think usually the episodes where there's a murderer aboard the ship get dark.
Oh, yes. That is dark.
It reminds me of the Voyager episode with the serial killer.
Yeah. With Brad Dourif, right?
Isn't that Brad Dourif. Yeah.
And this one, of course, the serial killer is played by one of the guys from Shawshank Redemption.
Right.
Who plays one of the sisters. So, like, there's something... What should we take away from that?
Right. Oh, that's funny. That's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Star Trek isn't the only series to do this, but this idea of reaching the end of a series and trying to force relationships to happen is a little frustrating. People have heard us vent about Chakotay and Seven. Yep. And then, I mean, for me, it's the same in Battlestar Galactica, that they tried to force some relationships near the end of the series. It just didn't make sense. So it happens. I think that there's this balance of, like, writers being attached to characters and then also trying to, do some fan service, not in a bad way, but, like, we all, we want to see characters get together. So
yeah. And like, the shipping is real.
Shipping is real. So anyone who spends more than 5 minutes with me knows shipping is real.
Oh, yes.
It runs deep.
I think for me, like, again, I love Worf and Deanna as friends. Like, that relationship is really special, I feel like. And honestly, having seen Picard, and you're like, Riker and Deanna are together. So I'm like, I was watching it like, I'm not too worried.
Right.
But still, please don't.
Please don't. Yeah, it's a little uncomfortable. It's very much just like, oh, why? Why is this a thing?
On another episode, they make Worf in love with Deanna that we're going to get to in a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it's the next one, but man.
Yeah. It doesn't stop. They keep trying. They keep trying. I mean, they really are. But it feels, because we're 10 episodes from the end at this point? 8 episodes from the end? It's Chakotay and Seven all over again. But, this happened first before that. But
like, I feel like with Chakotay and Seven, like, they literally didn't even do this build-up. They did, one episode of build-up.
That's true.
One. And this is at least 3 where they're like, Worf likes Deanna.
Yeah.
And then with Chakotay and Seven, it's like one time, and then at the finale, like, we're together.
Yeah.
Like, huh?
I know. Yeah. If anyone wants to hear our review of Seven and the Chakotay thing, there's the episode that we did talking about Picard. We reflected a lot on Seven and her evolution and relationships and all that. So you can check that out. But yeah, it's tough. And the link, if you can find it on my YouTube channel. Links down below. So yeah, this is, I think for me, this is kind of one of the, it's not a bad episode, but it's not a super memorable episode either, I think the ones that kind of have a hard time keeping the trust of the viewer without it being engaging, where you're just kind of like, well, I know something's up. I know this isn't real, but I don't care enough to figure out what's actually happening.
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of how I felt.
Yeah, so it's tough. Genesis. Let's talk about Genesis. Our good friend Reginald Barclay is back, and it's
oh, Barclay.
Oh, Barclay. There's a couple comments before we get into that. Truebale was talking about got the idea back when Alexander came on board, since Troy's helping him out, and Loxana gets involved. Yeah. I think there's some truth to that.
Absolutely.
We did talk about how it was nice to see that evolve, but and then I know Seven and Harry Kim. I ship Seven and the Doctor pretty intensely, so
yeah, that's all me.
yeah
they belong together,
but we would like to see a little resolution for Ensign Harry Kim.
We would.
Yep.
Always.
Okay, so Genesis, how'd you like this episode?
This episode was a whole lot of nope for me. Yeah, I will never be able to get that spider out of my head, ever. Neanderthal Riker out of my head. Lizard amphibian Deanna. Yeah, this was just no, thank you.
This was a whole thing. I
love Barclay. Like at the beginning, he's so fun, but no.
I do love. I mean, it's so we have beat this to the ground, but the writers have as well. We love Barclay, but it's so funny that his like hypochondriac transporter fears, all of them are legitimate fears.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't see the times when it's not legitimate, but like when he gets worried about being sick and then this nonsense happens, it's like, okay, you were onto something, Barclay. Like, we'll give you some
exactly. Credit. I just love that he is the quintessential WebMD diagnoser. He's just like, it's got to be the, I don't know, it's Red Death or something.
Yeah.
And Beverly's like, it's not,
Yeah. And I love too that she's literally like, Barclay, we've had this conversation. You have to come to me before you look stuff up. And this is like pre-WebMD stuff.
Exactly.
So funny.
So funny.
Yeah, it's I was trying to look it up right now. So he is not suffering. He just has diagnosed himself with a lethal illness. We could talk about the B plot real quick about Spot having kids.
Oh, yeah, Spot has kittens.
That was so cute.
Oh, that's so adorable.
And Data's so excited about it, and I love too when he's like, when let me see, Lieutenant Ogawa says that she's pregnant and her husband's freaking out, and Data's like, as a father to be, I understand these emotions, and I'll have a talk with him.
That was so sweet.
Yeah.
It's just like
so good. Oh, peace, Demish. Oh, we have some gems that we've been discussing, but we are deep in Genesis at this point. So I've mentioned this book before, but this is my good friend Muhammad's book about evolution in Star Trek. But it's learning evolution using Star Trek references, but he does have a great section on Genesis.
I was thinking about him actually watching it. It's like, I bet this was covered in his talks in his book.
Absolutely. So talking about basically the idea of, and I'm not a biologist, so if Muhammad's here, I'm sorry. But it's this idea that there's a tree of life, right? That there's sort of original species, and then you go off and there's branches. One can de-evolve this way. One cannot de-evolve this way by hopping from human to spider, because the origin that they had way back here separated a long time ago. There's nothing that's shared between the two of those. Similarly, cat, amphibian. The only one that sort of makes sense is the primate one. Mm-hmm. But, like, for example, he says, Data's cat may have had a vaguely reptilian ancestor, but presumably no ancestor of cats looked like a modern iguana. That's the takeaway. And Domestic, I love that comment. Spot got unchaperoned shore leave. We're not going to question what happened with Spot. My 2 cents would be that it was Data performing an experiment. And artificially impregnated Spot. To learn what fatherhood was like.
That's interesting. I realized I did not even question how Spot got pregnant.
Valid.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. And yeah, DTG, Andy, they basically de-evolved according to their personalities, but then the scientific explanation was like, not that.
No grounding.
No grounding. It is just all over the place. So in terms of Muhammad's role doing biology and explaining biology in Star Trek, this one's a doozy. And science says no. For the majority of
science says no, and Samantha says no. Thank you very much.
Samantha says a hard nope.
Nope.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny, but I do like, I mean, again, it's a ridiculous episode, but it's like a ridiculously fun, horrible. Like you said, the only thing is it's just the visuals. I think for me it's the spider. The Berkeley spider thing is never
it's like that's like the Fly level.
Yeah. Yes.
No thank you.
Oh, no thank you.
Thanks, but really no thanks.
But it's like, for me, it's just it's a Berkeley focused episode, which we love. And it's Data and his cat. And if this one comes on, I'm like, sure, I'll watch it. I'll just close my eyes for part of it.
Right.
And my science part dies a little, but yeah, it's not terrible. And I like Barkley offering to help with Spot too. That was really cute. That was really cute. So
yeah, I like how Barkley gets along with animals, not people.
Yeah. He's a Hufflepuff to the core.
Right.
So yeah. It's that was Genesis. All right. I have a sneeze building up, so I apologize. The last one we're going to talk about is Journey's End. This is Wesley Crusher's comeback, and he's questioning his future as a member of Starfleet. While the Enterprise is under orders to remove descendants of Native North Americans, referred to as Indians throughout this episode, from a planet that is being yielded to the Cardassians as part of a treaty. Oof. Yeah. I mean, I'm tempted to just be like, this episode happened and we're not going to discuss it. Because it's rife with issues.
Yeah. I had a big WTF face the whole time.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, this was bizarre.
Yeah.
And just, I don't know.
I get what they're trying to do. We're rendered speechless by this episode. I get what they're trying to do. Obviously, they're trying to make this allegory for, invading, taking over lands from Native Americans, but it's like, this is too literal. This is too literal. And to the point that it's offensive to copy this. And for me.
Yeah, exactly. And Picard's even he's bringing it up like, hundreds of years ago, we did the same thing. Maybe we should not do it this time. And the Admiral's like, I made that argument, but we're gonna do it anyway. And
she's like,
kinds of weird.
I can replace the captain, but you're still gonna have to do this. And he's, yeah.
And then the conclusion that they come up with, which is like, you'll leave the Federation, you'll be in Cardassian, territory.
Yeah.
I'm like, couldn't they just have done that in the first place? I mean, I get the whole you're not in the Federation, so you can't ask us for help thing, but the Cardassians like, you're gonna stay out of our way, and they're like, yeah, you're gonna stay out of our way, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, they could have avoided a lot of weird heartache and, like, yeah, like Trail of Tears in Space. Like, they could have avoided that, it seems.
Yeah. I think Turbail just summarized the episode way better. It's just, it's too on the nose. It's, yeah. And so, a couple of things here, though. I will say, again, I hate to come back to the Star Trek trivia, but this came back again. This was another moment in one of these episodes that reminded me of the trivia. And it was from, not this year, 2 years ago, when one of the friends that we had met was coming as a guest of one of the other people and had binged a lot of Star Trek to try to get up to speed. And one of the questions on the trivia was, what is Admiral Nechev's favorite snack? Or favorite dessert? And he was like, I am nowhere near anyone on this ship, but I know this because I watched this episode a week ago. It's the canapes. So now every time I see that, I'll think of that. But
nice.
Yeah, so let's talk about Wesley Crusher in this one. It's an interesting character development. It's, again, I find it slightly offensive, the way that they utilize this for his character. But it's a interesting way to seemingly wrap up his storyline.
It is. And I mean, one of the people in the chat, P. Stemish, said at least they felt Wesley deserved a send-off, and I think that's true. I wouldn't have minded if he didn't have one. Like, I wouldn't have noticed if he didn't have one, I guess. Yeah. You know? Yeah. But, you know, it was nice that they brought him back as a, you know, this is the last season, we're going to tie up our characters' storylines. And I just was like, this was weirdly, I mean, the Traveler is suddenly a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that we haven't met this person before, ever. And it's like, it was strange the way they led him to that. I liked that he's not in Starfleet. I liked that he decided that wasn't for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a little bit strange to use the, you know, vaguely Native American sort of process to make that happen for him. And then the fact that the guide was like Native American, but not, like, he turns into a white guy at the end.
Yeah.
I mean. Yep.
There's that.
There is that. And I don't know.
Yeah.
It was very quick and forced and just not well put together, I thought.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Obviously, yeah, the Fluffy Butt mentioned, sorry, I'll giggle every time I see that name. This is a lot of Chakotay's storylines all over again.
Yes. And I could not stop thinking about Chakotay the whole time.
Yeah. Of just it's on the nose. It's on the nose. This is allegory works very well in Star Trek, and then when you try to co-opt it too much, it becomes offensive. And that's a hard line for science fiction. It's a hard line, but this is a tough one. And then wasn't the Traveler in the first season? That's a good question. I don't remember that, but it's possible.
It might have been. Like, I sort of recognize the concept a little bit, but
yeah. Let me Traveler. Yeah, Wesley had contact long ago. Sorry, I'm just looking it up. Wow, there's a lot of stuff on this episode. Try to contain your amazement. All right. Yeah. So we're going to Where No One Has Gone Before. That was it, when Picard talks to his grandmother. Okay,
yeah,
so that's
Unexpected Bagel just mentioned that.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. You guys are awesome. Yeah, so we have seen this before, but it's interesting. I don't know. Yeah. It's an okay conclusion for Wesley. I mean, like you
Right.
said, I think it's smart to have him leave Starfleet, which is unexpected. But
I just liked that he made that decision for himself. That, I mean, after his vision quest with his dad, but he still had this feeling in himself that he was not enjoying Starfleet. He was trying to satisfy other people's expectations of him, and came to the conclusion that he wanted to do something different, and this helped him find that.
Exactly. So yeah, I think that's fair. We'll end it there. Yeah, Hot Dog Wizard. The first season is infinitely forgettable.
Yeah, you could say that.
This was, I mean, so DS9 in air dates is airing at this point. And so Deep Space Nine has a heavy Cardassian storylines, but you haven't seen any Deep Space Nine yet. So obviously this is shaping your opinion of Cardassians. How's that going?
They don't seem very nice.
Fair enough.
I don't know. I feel like I don't know a lot about them still in terms of what they're like, their culture, and why. I know you've probably explained to me like
that's okay.
several times why they're fighting with the Federation, but I'm still kind of like, I don't quite get it. And I don't know. I'm curious to see more gradation in individual Cardassian, let's say.
Valid. That's fair. We're gonna get Cardassians across the spectrum.
Yay.
And my number 2 alien space boyfriend happens to be a Cardassian, so we'll have that conversation later. My first one is Garrus from Mass Effect, if anyone's curious, but number 2, most people know, but he's a Cardassian. But we will have. I can't wait to start watching Deep Space Nine with you.
We're so close.
We're so close. So speaking of that, I mean, we are going to end TNG this week. So next Sunday we will discuss Firstborn, Bloodlines, Emergence, Preemptive Strike, and All Good Things, Part 1 and 2, the very end of TNG.
We're there.
We made it. Almost. Yep. So, we are very excited to start Deep Space Nine. I think we've done an okay job about avoiding spoilers in the chat for you. I
mean, I probably wouldn't have noticed anyway.
Right.
Just people talking about stuff, and I'm just like, all right.
I don't know who they are. I'll care when I get to it.
Right.
That's awesome. Well, thank you everyone for hanging out with us. This was super, super fun. We'll close it there. Any final thoughts?
No, that was an interesting group of episodes.
All right. Well, I can't wait for next week.